Hi, I'm Sarah Green. Today I'm talking with Donal Sull of the MIT Sloan School of Management. He's the co-author of the HBR article, Why Strategy Execution Unravels and What to Do About It. Don, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start by talking about the importance of communication, because one of the surprising things from the article to me was that you found there actually is a lot of communication about strategy execution, but yet somehow this doesn't seem to translate into understanding. I think one of your data points was that in your research, only 55% of managers, when asked, could name a single one of their company's top 5 priorities. So tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, this is a big surprise to executives. We've now surveyed thousands of executives in hundreds of companies, and they're always shocked to see how poorly their strategy is understood. And what's interesting to me is not that the strategy is poorly understood. We've known that for a while. It's how surprised they are. And I think what's going on there is this. Most executives, when they think about strategy, they do exactly as you say. They focus on communication, and they measure the communication in terms of the number of emails they send or the number of town hall meetings they hold. Wrong measure, okay? That's all about inputs. What really matters is the output, and one output in particular, how well managers throughout the organization understand what the strategy is and what it means for them. And the reality is that lives and dies, that understanding, in discussions, ongoing discussions among the leaders who are charged with executing this strategy. What is the strategy? What does it mean for me? How does it help me to understand what's going on in my business right now? And so if executives really want their strategy to be understood, they should focus less on their PowerPoint slides and the number of emails they send, and more on how they structure and lead discussions with leaders throughout the organization who have to execute it on what the strategy is and what it means for them and their teams.
So another factor here too is the idea of a performance culture, and I know that's another thing a lot of CEOs, I think, talk about, where they say if we can build this performance culture, the execution problem will be solved. But again, you found that can actually be counterproductive. So yeah. What's a fix there?
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of times when execution stalls in a company, executives say, oh, the problem is performance, right? We're not recognizing and rewarding people who hit their numbers. And the response as a result is they drive really hard, push really hard on performance and winning and accountability and results. And they might have stacked ranking of employees, for instance, or high-powered incentives to push performance. And things don't work. And they wonder why. And the reason they don't work, the prescription doesn't work because the diagnosis is wrong. What we find is in the majority of companies, the biggest obstacle to execution is not failure of performance, right? In most companies, actually people who hit their numbers are recognized and rewarded, even once they're struggling with execution. The real problems are managers struggle to coordinate across units, and they struggle to adapt to local circumstances. That's what hinders execution. And the problem is by pushing on performance, you actually undermine the values you need for collaboration and for agility. So if you really focus people on individual performance, you get less teamwork. If you really focus on kind of short-term objectives, people are afraid to experiment and take risks that are necessary for innovation. And so you have to have an understanding of what's inhibiting execution in your organization before you know how to respond. And if managers get that diagnosis wrong, the prescription isn't going to work.
It's funny because with initiatives like these, we're so often saying it's the people at the top that really need to lead these initiatives. But what I'm hearing from you, and I think what you emphasize in the article, is that actually a lot of the leadership on this has to really come from the middle. What's going on there?
Yeah, to me this is the single most pernicious myth, right? That good execution has to be driven from the top. And I think, you see this as an example in Larry Bossidy's book, an excellent book called Execution, many good insights there. But the story Bossidy tells is as CEO of Allied Signal, from on high, he comes down multiple layers in the organization and he negotiates performance commitments with individuals, and then he monitors them personally, and he makes decisions on their bonuses. And this is viewed as good execution. Question, what do you think happens when Larry Bossidy leaves? Answer, the company's stock gives up all the gains it had relative to the S&P 500, and by his own admission, execution, the discipline of execution unravels, okay? So the deep root cause of this is execution requires ongoing trade-offs and balancing of alignment of your strategy and activities, right? Of adaptation to local circumstances and of ongoing coordination with colleagues in other units. The managers, the leaders who are best situated to make these trade-offs and balance these conflicting demands are those middle managers, those distributed leaders closest to the facts on the ground. So they have to drive execution. Top leaders can guide it, provide a strategy, communicate that strategy, build a good organizational context. But the initiative and the drive has to come from the middle.
So I think that's a really good reminder for senior executives. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else you'd like to leave people with in terms of how to get strategy execution right?
Yeah, I think one thing that leaders should be thinking about is the role of data in execution, okay? So analytics and big data are a very important topic right now. And, folks think, obviously, when they're thinking about their customers, for instance, we're looking for analytics, we're looking for insights, we're looking for big data. Many executives that I deal with, at least, when it comes to execution, they're flying blind. They don't really understand what's working and what's not and why. And so I think, just as is the case in trying to grow revenues or modify your pricing with customers when you want big data, the same is true with execution. Leaders need to have a better sense of what's going on in order to intervene effectively.
Well, I hope we've made a good start on that today. Don, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.